Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So this is Itto Math Guide 1.2. Essentially, we are updating our previous figures with the latest Itto changes. I'll go through a list of changes, and then we'll talk about the updated source of superlative stats, the impact to the combo to perform in 11 seconds of burst, the updated figures based on 2 Kesa slash and Zhongli not stacking, the crit damage figures, the average crit, as well as if we go for 100% CR. And I'll do a TLDR as well as a final TLDR. Okay, so anyway, let's go to the first point itself. Before we start, bear in mind that I'm taking the figures from the Chinese text, which is usually more accurate than the English, so good thing I can understand the Chinese. So some differences between the English and Chinese at the point of me writing this would be the weapon effect on Red Horn and Gorou's C4 and Itto's C4. The exact buff is not there on the English as well. It is the figures are stated as XX at the moment. Okay, so let's go into the list of changes itself. So for the normal attack talent, we now have an additional stack from N2, which means outside of his burst, when you use the second attack of his normal attack combo, you will get 1 stack, as opposed to previously it can only grant a stack when you're in the burst. So effectively, MiHoYo is giving you more ways to get stats outside of his burst. But if you build him correctly, he should have 100% uptime. This should not factor in, but it can help. Okay, Warrior's Burden passive itself is removed, but its effect is actually not incorporated in his normal attack, so it's still there. Okay, because I saw comments saying that they stealth remove it, but it's not. It's still there. Okay, the effect is still there. If you don't remember, Warrior's Burden in passive, this is the effect where if he does a dodge or he cuts his elemental skill, he will still be able to continue his normal attack combo. So let's say if you do N1, N2 and cast elemental skill, your next normal attack will not be N1, you'll be N3. Okay, burst. During burst, N1 and N3 will grant 1 stat each, since now N2 grants without burst. Elemental and physical resistance decreased by 20% instead of increased by 20%, which kind of makes sense because he already has such a high defense. So this is like a balancing move. With high, so like I said, right, with high defense and constant shields coupled with Gorou, I'm not too concerned about this, honestly. Okay, so these are the changes with respect to the normal attack as well as the burst. Now we'll talk about Constellations. C2 max limit is now 4.5 seconds cooldown reduction and 18 energy restored. So it's more like an adjustment where MiHoYo wants to encourage you to go for 3 Joe characters, because 3 Joe characters is enough to grant you max bonus. And in my opinion, this change looks to be designed to cater for Gorou's need for crystallized reactions. You need one other elemental character other than Joe to help proc crystallize reactions reliably enough. That's how I'll put it. Okay, now the biggest change, C4. After his burst ends, nearby party members get 20% defense and 20% attack bonus for 10 seconds. So we no longer get this super OP 25% crit rate that can be maintained at 100% uptime. We now get a utility, a support utility on this C4, where he grants defense and attack bonus to his party members during his burst downtime. Let me share more about my thoughts. So GG, OP C4 remove. But there are other changes adjusted for him and his weapon that may still allow him to produce similar DPS, and I'll share those in the figures later. Such a C4 effect is actually now more in line with other 5-star characters. I actually briefly mentioned this in Math Guide 1. C4 is usually a filler constellation that allows the DPS to provide some type of support utility during their downtime. So example, Hu Tao's C4 provides 12% CR, Raiden's C4 provides 30% attack bonus. These are just a couple that I quickly glanced through and added, but most of the time C4 doesn't really add to the damage of the 5-star character. Okay. However, the issue I have with this constellation is not the loss of 25% CR, because in the first place that was way too OP, but that it is conflicting with C2. C2 right now, with the recent change, encourages you to get a 13.5 second cooldown with 11 second burst, which means you only have a 2.5 second downtime if you manage your energy correctly, your energy recharge, your burst uptime, etc. It really depends on the 3 Joe characters if they gain enough energy your Itto will have it at 100% uptime. So now then the question is, C4 is only fully utilized with 10 seconds downtime. So 2.5 versus 10. What? I'm wasting my C4, right? I mean, I don't even mind that it's a support utility buff if the duration itself is fully utilized. The problem now is that it's not, so it kind of feels like they realized the original C4 was too OP, so they gave you a C4 that follows the mold of previous 5-star characters, without considering the conflict with C2. Or the other way is, you can think of C4 as a constitution that works well regardless of your subtime. That's possible as well. Because now people are always talking about Albedo plus Childe plus Itto. While I see the rationale behind that, I do have some concerns with the energy restoration for these 3 Joe characters. It doesn't so look that good. And for the 4th character, you can put Raiden for crystallized reactions, but you're wasting Raiden's burst damage boost. Her boost to all the burst damage of the team members. Because Itto's actual DPS is from his normal attacks. The burst is just a stance mode. There's no actual damage coming from the burst. So that's a waste. The ideal scenario would be to say put a Jiu, Ningguang together with Itto, because Ningguang gives a lot of energy. But it remains to be seen whether Gorou plus Albedo is enough energy. So those factors will affect how good this particular effect is. But if you fully utilize your C2, which you should, because you're trying to get as high of a burst uptime on as quickly as possible for for Itto to use his burst as much as possible, because his DPS is so good, even with resistance ranges, and I'll show that later. Sorry. But anyway, here's the thing. It's still very conflicting to have it as 10-second boost while your C2 gives you only a 2.5 second or 3.5 second downtime. Sorry, 2.5 second downtime. So yeah, it's weird, but it's still a long way to go to Itto's release, so more changes may come anyway. Okay. Next change, C6, crit damage. Crit damage increased from 50% to 70% on his charged attack, which is his Kisa Slash. So this coupled with Red Horn changes are meant to keep his DPS good. But how good? We'll show you in the figures later. Now let's talk about the biggest change, the second biggest change, which is the buff to his Red Horn Stone Treasure changes. If you see here, the arrow denotes the new change, so direction of the arrow denotes the new change. The base attack of the weapon has been reduced and crit damage has been increased. So if I take level 90 as a reference, attack is reduced by about 66, but we get a 22% crit damage boost, which is very very nice because Itto skills on defense, not attack. Okay, and the weapon effect, defense is increased by 28% at R1, normal and charged attack damage is increased by 40% of defense instead of 20 and 28. R5 has an even bigger change, the scope of the change, so all the percentage is the same, but the increase is very significant. Defense increased by 56 instead of 40, normal and charged attack damage increased by 80% instead of 56%. So overall, this is very nice buff to the weapon, and space attack is not as important for Itto, but such a high crit damage is very very welcome. This is basically the crit damage version of Jade Cutter. If you know why Jade Cutter is good, you'll know why Red Horn Stone Treasure is good. Okay. So again, we look at the figures to see how it all works out. So this is the list of changes itself. Let me talk about the updated source of superlative stats. So effectively, we get one more source, which is one stat from N2 without burst. Okay. I just want to update this list here so that everyone can look at it and know how you get your stats on Itto. And of course, I updated the N2 to be cancelled during burst because you already get it outside of burst. So regardless of whether during or outside of burst, you will still get it. Okay. Combos to perform in the 11 seconds of bursts, there is no change. Okay, with the recent changes, there are no change to the combo required. Now let's look at the updated figures. I have 3 different sections here. I will step you guys through it. So crit damage figures, i.e. these are just purely looking at the crit damage figures, so that it's the actual figure you see in-game, so it's easier for you to reference, per se. So crit damage before latest change, these are the figures. Crit damage after latest change, these are the figures. So if you want to look at the figures in detail, you can pause the video. But I will run through some of the percentages. I wouldn't run through every single figure, but you get where I'm coming from. Let's just look at this. Which is to be expected, right? Because the crit damage of Stone Rehone is increased, the crit damage of C6 is increased. So let's compare previous versus current. At C0, the percentage difference, this is the range. Basically at R1 you have something like 13%, R5 you have 20 to 21, and so on and so forth. C6 has a much bigger change, 16 versus say 24, 23 to 24. Okay. So we are actually, oh sorry, wait, one more point I want to talk about. Geo Resonance, as well as C2 plus Gorou and C6 Gorou, all of this remains the same, regardless of these changes. Because Gorou, there's no actual change. His C4 does not give you crit damage. If you look at the Chinese stats, it's still healing. In fact, they recently changed his C4 icon, this healing icon, to make it cuter. So why would they change that healing icon to be cuter if it's no longer healing, right? Alright, so anyway, this is more or less the same. No change to that. So we are actually hitting harder now, largely in part due to the weapon buffs and also from increased crit damage for C6. So weapon change is actually a huge buff to Itto's entire design per se, although I know that weapon is separate from him, but it is his signature weapon. Okay. So what about the impact from losing the 25% CR from new C4? Because right now it looks so nice. We have 14.3 million damage at C6R5 with C6 Gorou during his entire burst. So let's average out the damage figures using crit rate. Okay, so the average crit, if you notice, right, there is some slight change to the figures because I realized a small mistake. I'll talk more about that later. And then you have the average crit with a 75% CR target based on the latest changes. Now it's more realistic, where you have 11.6 million damage instead of 14.3 million. Okay, so let's look at the analysis itself. Now we see the impact from losing 25 CR from C4. The C6R5 with C6 Gorou damage with talents 9, 12, 12 is now 1.16 million instead of the 1.43 million or the 1.18 million. What is 1.18 million? 1.18 million is when we factor in crit rate previously, before the latest Itto changes. Okay, when I talk about 40 million, that is the latest changes without factoring crit rate, just purely the crit damage figures. Now that I factor in crit rate to have a 75% CR target, we are dealing 1.16 million. It is in fact lower than before the changes, the damage that we have, because C4 plus gives you 25% CR. It's still 75% CR target base, with C4 plus give you the 100% CR. So with the changes, with the buff to crit damage, buff to the defense from Red Hornstone Treasure, coupled with the loss of C4, effectively, these are the percentage changes. 5.6 to 7.2% loss at R1, 1.5 loss to 0.4 gain at R5. These are all the different permutations. If you need to see, this is R1, R5, R1 with Joe, R5 with Joe, R1 with Gorou, R5 with Gorou, C2 plus Gorou, R1 with C6, R1 with R5 with C6. And of course, this is all C6 because we're talking about the impact from C4. Okay? So for C6 R5 view, slight loss of up to 1.5%, especially at C6 R5 with C6 Gorou. For C6 R1 view, the latest change has a bigger loss of up to 7.2%. This is because the effect of the weapon buff is bigger than the C4 nerf plus C6 buff. But what if I change my target CR to 100%? Since my current figures for C6 Itto with C6 Gorou is 75% CR with 378% CD, super high CD, And C0 Itto with C0 Gorou is 75% CR and 268 CD, which is still very, very high. All thanks to the weapon. Largely thanks to the weapon. So crit damage is kind of overkill at the moment. So let's look at 100% CR. Let's change our target to 100% CR by getting more CR upgrades on our artifact substats. If you remember, Itto can achieve 75% CR with just 2 upgrades of CR. So now we can definitely afford to get more upgrades of crit rate. So with 100% CR target, this is what we get. This is still the same. I actually went back to update the figures before the latest change to make it 100% CR target, even from C0 and C1. Okay, so the figures for C0 and C1, you'll notice that it is higher. Okay, higher than say. Okay. So it's lower in certain scenarios, but higher in some scenarios. Take for example, at talent level 999, 322 versus 326. Why? Because at C0 R1, before the latest changes, your crit damage is not high enough to cross that specific threshold to make 100% CR better. And I'll talk more about that later. So if I, in all these figures, these were working progress, WIP figures. Okay, so talents 999, C0, C6, this is the detailed difference that we are seeing. This difference is comparing before the latest Itto changes. Okay, so now you see there is no negative figures here. Everything is again or above. Oh, so long. Okay, the latest changes are actually above. Okay, once we change our CR target to 100% across all constellations. So you gotta change your build to target for 100% CR instead of base 75% CR. But there is a very big caveat here, which is that you must be using his signature weapon, Red Horn Stone Treasure. Okay, it's the fact that C0 and C1 gets a 13 to 22% buff when they are not affected by the latest changes, Itto changes. It's a testament to how good the Red Horn changes are, especially since they are not affected by the especially since C0 C1 not affected by C4 change. As for C6, even though we lose 25% CR from the new C4, by getting to 100% CR, we are still able to get a 1 to 2% increase at R1. You can see here. And at R5, I get like 8 to 9%. I have 9% here and 8% here. But why is this the case? Especially when we have to invest additional artifact stats into CR now. By the way, if you're not interested in the reason why, you can just skip ahead. I just wanted to quickly explain this for the people who are interested. So 2 factors. Although we lose 25% CR, we gain additional 20% CD from C6 and an additional 22% CD from Red Horn. That translates to an actual loss of only 4% CR. If you think about it, 42% CD divided by 2, that's like 21% CR. So the equivalent loss is only 4% CR. But we gain additional defense and damage based on defense bonuses from Red Horn. Okay. The next factor explains for C0 as well as C6 both. And it's because Itto has so much crit damage. At C0, you get 88.2% from Red Horn, 78% from artifacts, 50% from base. This is adjusted, by the way. This is adjusted to get 100% CR. 88.2% CD from Red Horn at C6, and other than what you have from the initial tree from C0, you have a 70% from C6 as well as a 40% from C6 Gorou. If you get C6 Itto, you're definitely going to get C6 Gorou. If you don't get C6 Gorou, by the time you get C6 Itto, something is very, very wrong with your luck. Okay? It's the odds of that happening is even higher than, say, maybe getting 3 5 stars in one pool or 2 5 stars in one pool. I have not done the math, so I don't know, but it's somewhere around there. Okay, so he's actually able to achieve 100% CR and yet still get more than 200% CD with his signature weapon. Very important, with his signature weapon, which means he can go even better than the golden ratio. So another way to explain this in figures: 75% CR with 378% crit damage versus 100% CR with 326 crit damage. This is the permutation that I work out. Okay, these are the figures you can achieve with 1 artifact roll going wrong per artifact, so 5 rolls going wrong in total. So 75% multiplied by 378% crit damage is 286%. 286 is 40 lesser than 326. That is the reason why 100% CR when you have more crit damage than 200, or significantly more in the case of Itto, you get more damage. Okay, so this is very simple, right? Very straightforward. So effectively, the latest changes is a buff if you have Red Hornstone Treasure and if you target 100% CR. So by the way, Itto is the only character I would recommend going for 100% CR because he can still achieve more than 200% CD with it. And not to mention, it's also easier trying to get upgrades on 2 stats rather than 1 stat when upgrading your artifacts. Even if the 2 stats are the 2 hardest stats to get upgrades on, compared to something like flat defense. But it's still easier, trust me. If you were gearing your Kokomi, you would feel if you main your Kokomi, or rather I shouldn't say main because she's not really main DPS. If you did build your Kokomi, trying to get as many HP percentage roll on her, you would notice that it's actually very hard even to get all your upgrades into 1 stat, which is the HP percentage. Okay, so final TLDR. I'm 1 minute plus longer than I wanted this video to be. So the latest changes are a buff if you build him correctly with 100% CR, provided you use Red Hornstone Treasure as well. Yes, miHoYo's latest move for him is very cunning. They are making his weapon really good, so that you will pull for him. So that a C6R5 a C6R5 is actually getting buff. Okay, C6R5 is buffed as long as you work towards 100% CR. The latest changes buffs C6R5. It also buffs C0R1, provided you use the weapon R1. If you use Serpent Spine, the latest changes is a nerf. There's no two-way about it. Or rather, it's a nerf if you are intending to do C6 Itto with say R5 Serpent Spine. The latest changes is a nerf for your particular setup. But it's not a nerf for C0R1 because it's a buff from C0R1 previously versus C0R1 now. So I will compare Serpent Spine and White Blind needs and whether Itto really needs Red Hornstone Treasure to shine. There's another thing I want to do as well, which is to talk about the updated Constellation and weapon refinement comparison, like whether it's better to go for C6 or whether it's better to go for R5 now, since the weapon is much stronger now. So let me know if you guys are interested in that, and maybe I'll do that before the Serpent Spine and White Blind. But given that Serpent Spine and White Blind, I do have quite a number of comments on Math Guide 1 asking me for it. So I'll probably do that first. Then we'll talk about his Constellations versus his weapon refinement. And maybe we'll throw in Serpent Spine. No, there will be too many figures. We'll see how that goes. Okay? So most importantly is provided there are no more Itto changes until that comparison is ready, because apparently this is already the 3rd Itto change. And by the way, just be prepared, there will probably still be changes before his release, because we are most likely getting him around mid-December. We have the Hutao banner coming, then the Albedo banner, then Itto. So there's a lot of time for miHoYo to tweak and adjust him around. I mean, after all, it's beta, it's their progress. It's up to them to decide how they want to release Itto and adjust Itto. So players have no say, players just test it. They have some say in terms of feedback, but yeah, you get what I mean. So yes, this is what I wanted to cover today. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. I hope this video is clear enough. If you did not have the patience to watch the whole video, I hope this final TLDR is good enough to explain. Okay, latest changes are a buff if you do 100% CR with Red Hornstone Treasure. That's it. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys in this video, and if you like the video, if you like content about the video, and click subscribe for more. Yeah, bye.